that, you can figure it out then. Very interesting stuff. But we're going to get to some explanations of Shabir Ali on why we have these kinds of things. All right, should we go on?
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Shabir Ali.
Muslim scholars have made sense of this by referring to a tradition according to which the Prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, said that the Quran has been revealed in 7 ahruf. And I have to come back and explain that term, ahruf. In any case, that tradition says you can recite of any of these, whichever is easy for you. And moreover, that each one of them by itself is complete, and each one serves as a healing. Now, to use comparable language from our Christian friends, we see that sometimes there is the statement, that which is sufficient for your salvation. So it looks like what this tradition is saying is that if you read according to any one of the readings, then this is sufficient for your salvation. And with this in mind, it gives great comfort to the average Muslim knowing that you can read just one of these readings in one text, like, for example, the 1924 Cairo edition of the Quran, and that is sufficient for you as a book of guidance. It is sufficient for you to have salvation, because, again, the various readings do not change anything that Muslims believe and do not affect the practices of Muslims in any significant degree.
So, what do you think of that, Hatun? I'm going to pull up a comment here, but go ahead.
One of the things I learned is people believe if you say same thing, and even if that's not true, again and again and again, everyone will believe that, and people will remember that. So Shabir Ali is saying, none of it's going to affect your eternity. It is sufficient for your salvation. It's all good. And he's expecting everyone to remember that. Therefore, just be confident in the Quran, which one you are reciting. But my basic questions would be, if have you noticed Muslim scholars are thinking that it's not Muhammad, it's not how Allah said, it is the Muslim scholars are trying to argue and trying to figure out how we can justify, now we end up having different Qurans. Mm-hmm. One of the way we can do as a Muslim scholar, we are going to say, we go back to tradition, and then we say, why Allah, in the first place, a man who cannot read and write? Arabs were not good enough to kind of recite one version, therefore Allah felt sorry for Arabs, and then Allah gave them one verse in 7 different ways to Arabs, so Arabs can remember that. That's just all like big mess and confusion. And also Muslim scholars simply says, actually, Aruf has nothing to do how Quran is given in 7 different ways. That will be it. I think follow up the video, he will be expressed that this is all Aruf given in one.
Yeah, I think he goes on to say we scholars don't even know what the ahruf are, which is amazing because Allah reveals the Quran in these different ahruf. And you can ask 10 different Muslim scholars what the ahruf are, and you get 10 different answers. They don't even know. They don't even know what these things are. So this is interesting stuff. Check out this comment here, because this is very typical. Forza here says, not differences in the content, differences in pronunciations, but the meaning of the word don't change. It's just like the difference in the pronunciation of Irish English versus USA English. So the difference between these different versions of the Quran and these different recitations of the Quran is like the difference between an Irish person speaking English and an American speaking English. The Irish person would say, "Me frosted Lucky Charms, they're magically delicious." Whereas an American would say, "My frosted Lucky Charms are magically delicious." And you see, those are the only differences we're talking about here. Hatun, is Forza correct here?
No.
No? So it's more than mere pronunciation.
So it is written differently. Therefore, it is pronounced differently. and therefore the meaning is different. Okay? There is a difference saying book, a book versus books. When I say a book, I'm talking about only one book. If I am saying books, I'm talking more than one book, minimum 2. There is a difference saying you, and there is different meaning and saying they. They are 2 different things. Or fight and kill. They are 2 different things. They are written differently, they are pronounced differently, and meaning is differently. One of the things you can do is, I forgot the name of the person who is making the comment. If you just simply get this book.
We did have a request. Could you hold that up a little more and give the title of the book, because someone clearly wants the book. So it's Bridges' translation of the 10 Qirat of the Noble Quran.
Yes.
Okay.
And it is from Fadl Suleiman. This book just tells you it is not the how you pronounce it. It says meanings are different, and author makes it easy. Meaning is different in Arabic as well as different in English. Okay?
Yep.
And in English, fight and kill is different. In Arabic, fight and kill is different. In English, book and books are different. In Arabic, that's different as well. Or other very basic question is, Muhammad gets so upset and cries that Arabs are poor Arabs, they can't even read, they can't even get on with the language. Why would Allah send to one tribe different versions of one language?
So that doesn't make any sense. If they're, you're talking. First of all, we have to clarify. It can't possibly just refer to, different pronunciations, because during the time of Muhammad, even people from the same tribe would disagree in their recitation of the Quran. So they're from the same tribe, they spoke the same dialect, and they're using different versions of the Quran. So this isn't simply different pronunciation. But I'd like to point out, Forza, if we actually go through, when we're talking about, you basically got different things. One, you have manuscripts today, and you can line up the manuscripts side by side. So if you line up the Hafs and Warsh and so on, you see differences. They're not simply different pronunciation, there are different words there, right? But if you go back to Muhammad's early reciters of the Quran, people like Ibn Masud and Ubay ibn Ka'b and so on, you find things like this. So if you read Surah 33, verse 6 of the Quran, it says, in the version you have today, the Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. So that's what it says. The Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. Right? Let me read to you a comment from Yusuf Ali's translation of the Quran, when he adds a comment at the bottom. Here's his comment. In some qiras, like that of Ubay ibn Ka'b, occur also the words, and he is a father of them, which imply his spiritual relationship and connection with the words, and his wives are their mothers. So notice, if you read the Quran today, it says, Prophet is closer to the believers than their own selves, and his wives are their mothers. But if you went to Ubay ibn Ka'b's version of the Quran, it says, and he is a father of them, meaning Muhammad is your father. Your sort of spiritual father, spiritual sense. The words, he is a father of them, are not in your Quran. They were in Ubay ibn Ka'b's edition and a couple other editions, a couple other versions of the Quran. So, I feel, I'm shocked that we even have to say this. Is a verse of the Quran that says, and he is a father of them, and a verse of the Quran that doesn't have that, it doesn't say he is a father of them at all, is that a different pronunciation? Is that a different pronunciation? One has the words, and he is a father of them. The other doesn't have the words, and he is a father of them. One has this phrase, one doesn't have the phrase. Is that a different pronunciation? In other words, if you go to Ireland and they say, and he is a father of them, and you come to America and we pronounce it differently by not saying anything, are those the same things? Are those different pronunciations? Or are those different words? Forza. I'm saying Forza. Notice. It's so frustrating. Forza. Why are you saying it's different pronunciations? Why? Because here's how it works. Your leaders tell you, perfect preservation, right down to the letter. And you run out and go, the Quran has been perfectly preserved, right down to the letter. And then you ran into someone like Hatun who said, actually, no, here are all these different versions of the Quran. So you ran back to your Muslim leaders and said, oh my goodness, she's showing me that there are different versions of the Quran. And the same people who lied to you at the beginning lied to you again and said, no, those are just different pronunciations. There's no difference in the words. There's no difference in the meanings. So now you're running out going, you see, my leaders, the same ones who lied to me the first time, they told me this. It's false. It's false. As this live stream continues, I'll give you example after example after example after example after example of changes to the Quran from your own Muslim sources.
About him. Oh, look, here it is. I heard the Prophet saying, learn the Quran from four: Abdullah ibn Masud, Salim, Mu'ad, and Ubay bin Ka'b. I wonder what Muhammad's top teacher of the Quran has to say about it.
Let me pick up another one of these books at random. Here's one. The people have been guilty of deceit in the reading of the Quran. I like it better to read according to the recitation of him whom I love, more than that of Zayd ibn Thabit.
Wow, according to that book you're holding, Muhammad's top teacher of the Quran is saying reading today's Quran is like being guilty of deceit. I wonder if any of these other books have something to say about it. Here, let me look at this one. Oh, there it is. O you Muslim people, avoid copying the Mus'haf and recitation of Zayd bin Thabit. By Allah, when I accepted Islam, he was but in the loins of a disbelieving man. And it was regarding this that Abdullah bin Masud said, O people of Al-Iraq, keep the masahif that are with you and conceal them.
So Muhammad's top teacher of the Quran says that today's version is deceptive and that we should avoid copying and reading it. But now I'm confused, Nabil. Muslims have always told me that the Quran has been perfectly preserved right down to the letter and that the evidence proves this.
That's what I was always taught.
Absolutely trash.